A bucket of manure was thrown at John Banks as he walked into the Auckland High Court this morning. It briefly delayed the start of his trial. Banks is charged with filing a false electoral return. Amanda Gillies was there.
Good morning, good morning.
But it wasn't to be a good morning for former ACT leader John Banks.
You bastard, you steal my $8,000, you bastard.
This was mudslinging, and not the verbal kind he's used to in politics. And this time the mud, or to be more precise, manure, stuck. Both Banks and his designer suit were filthy.
It's not on, mate.
Ex-party president John Thompson took out long-time protester Sam Brackenoff, who was miffed by a comment Banks made to him back in 1997. The trial had to be delayed for 90 minutes so Banks could change his suit. He told police he didn't want to lay assault charges. The stunt didn't impress Banks's toughest critics, including Graham McCready, who brought the private prosecution against him.
Oh, I don't think that's necessary,
Finally, the one-time police minister took his place on the other side of the dock. He's charged with declaring donations from Kim.com and Sky City as anonymous when he knew they weren't during his mayoral campaign in 2010.
Not guilty.
He needs only to convince a judge there's no jury.
Mr.com will say that Mr. Banks and his wife came to his Coatesville mansion for lunch. Mr.com says he offered to donate $50,000 to Mr. Banks' mayoral campaign, and the offer was promptly accepted.
The Crown says Banks told .com to write 2 cheques for $25,000 each so he wouldn't have to declare where they came from. .com was initially offended. He wanted his name out there as a donor.
It says that Mr. Banks responded that he wanted to help Mr. .com and he could help him more effectively if no one knew about the donation.
But the defence will argue Banks considered the official return true and correct.
That he acted honestly and with integrity throughout, and that as far as he was concerned, the return was accurate.
Kim.com and his team will start giving evidence tomorrow. Sky City is due to be called at the end of the week. The trial is set down for 10 days. Amanda Gillies, 3 News.
Kia ora, good evening. A double humiliation today for MP John Banks at the start of his trial on a charge of filing a false electoral return. Not only was he forced to front up at the High Court today, he was covered in compost by a protester on the way in. The allegations relate to 2 donations from internet mogul Kim.com to help in Mr Banks' bid to become Auckland Mayor in 2010. If convicted, Mr Banks could face up to 2 years in prison or a maximum fine of $10,000.
John Banks is used to a bit of mudslinging in Parliament, but he was caught unaware as he fronted up to face election fraud charges. The first day of his trial on at the High Court in Auckland was delayed by an hour and a half to give him time to change his suit. It's alleged the ACT MP knowingly received $65,000 in donations during his 2010 failed bid for the Super City mayoralty, but listed them as anonymous. Mega Upload founder Kim.com claims he pledged $50,000 to the campaign during a lunch at his Coatesville mansion.
The .com says that Mr. Banks intervened and asked the cheque should be split into 2 cheques, each of $25,000, so that he would not have to declare where they came from. Mr. .com says he was a little offended by this explanation.
Banks says he doesn't remember the meeting with .com or another with Sky City, and he claims the election return was filled out by his campaign treasurer, Lance Hutchison, and he never read it.
Mr Banks considered that the return was true and correct, that he acted honestly and with integrity throughout, and that as far as he was concerned, the return was accurate.
Lance Hutchison told the court Banks' campaign team hoped to raise $1 million by soliciting donations from those on the rich list.
We had a wish list of maybe 10 lots of 25s to get it started. It was just a wish list.
Today, a detective investigating the allegations against Banks and an Auckland electoral officer also gave evidence. The Crown's expected to call 16 witnesses during the 2-week trial. They include Kim.com and his wife Mona and Sky City CEO Nigel Morrison. Anastasia Hedge, Sky News.